What we're going to do now is look in a little bit more detail about some of the more particular research areas that are taking place. These are areas that are under Imperial's umbrella. And the first one we're going to look at is the issue around cyber security, cyber threats, cyber security, big issue at a national, international, business level. And delighted this afternoon we're joined by Nick Jennings, who's an expert in machine learning and artificial intelligence, currently Vice Provost of Research, also holding a chair in artificial intelligence in the Department of Computing and Electric and Electronic Engineering at Imperial. And Nick was also the UK government's chief scientific advisor for national security between 2010 to 2015. So with a great pedigree, Nick is going to, I think, very much explore around supercomputing capabilities and what's required to anticipate cyber threats and attacks, and how we minimize those and keep us all smiling and safe and wealthy and healthy. So great to have you with us, Nick. Thank you very much and look forward to your presentation.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you today about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a central problem that we face today if we want to function effectively and make the most of our digital technologies. In the UK, GCHQ, for example, say there are 60 serious cyber attacks per month, 58,000 malicious emails from taxrefund@gov.uk, from a government-domained email system. 65% of large companies reported a breach in 2016. There are similar analogues and similar figures for many other countries around the world. These are affecting all sectors and all facets of our life. So in finance, the the Bank of Bangladesh had an $81 million loss from a cyber attack. Cyber attacks can not only do damage to things that are in an information space, they can also do damage to physical things as well. Stuxnet destroyed Iranian centrifuges. That means it blew them up, made them incapable of operating. There was a cyber attack last year on a German steel mill, which again ruined hardware. So cyber is not just in the information space, it's also in the physical space. Now, as has been alluded to, ever more of our systems that we require to do our everyday life are being connected to networks and connected to one another. It often goes under the banner of the Internet of Things. We encounter lots of these things as individuals, from sort of digital personal assistants or personal devices, Alexa, Siri, those sorts of things, Fitbits, other bits of wearable or medical technologies, and sort of smart homes, so sort of Amazon Dash, smart TVs, smart meters, smart alarms. So these are all examples and instances of the Internet of Things. Now, there are many good reasons for wanting to connect those sorts of things in our life together, because it makes things easier and it makes things better. However, the downside of that is that it also makes cybersecurity very much more important and very much more something that we need to get hold of. Samsung TVs, for example, had an issue last year where they were recording what was going on in the room, which is quite an invasion on privacy, to a third-party site, and they were doing it because they wanted to be able to sort of act upon commands, and so you wanted to be able to talk to it. The trouble is, it was recording everything that was going on in the rooms, and it was sending in an unencrypted way to a third-party site over a public network. That's not a very secure thing to do. Also last year, there was one of the first cyber attacks that brought together, that occurred through the medium of having lots of devices, so lots of things, internet-enabled devices in the home, things like webcam, things like baby monitors, corralled a whole load of those and did a distributed denial of service attack that affected companies like Facebook, Twitter, and news websites. They brought together millions of these devices in order to do a cyber attack. So cyber attacks can have significant consequences for us as an individual. So your smart meter can tell when your house is unoccupied, and your connected home security can open the door for intruders, if done appropriately. Medical devices can be attacked. So Dick Cheney, the previous part of the US administration, he had the wireless functionality on his pacemaker disabled. For any of you who are Homeland fans, you will recognize exactly why he did that. Okay, and there are researchers who've shown a whole load of different attacks on a variety of implantable medical devices. So imagine someone else controlling a medical device inside your body. That's an interesting possibility. Now, the issue with many of these Internets of Things devices is actually they're not very well constructed from a cybersecurity point of view. They're quite often small devices. Not a lot of effort goes into the security of them because they're very much concerned with the functionality, and they leak information. So they're insecure and they leak information. And so you can build up a very clear pattern of life about how people are behaving by having leaked information from a variety of these different sorts of devices. Now, it's not just personal devices that this applies to, it also applies to key elements of our critical national infrastructure. These are increasingly being networked as well. So if you think about finance, stock markets, institutions buying, selling, providing data and brokering services, these are being connected for good reasons, but actually now that's a network that can be attacked. Utilities, so power grids. In 2015, hackers used a particular cyber attack that took 250,000 people in the Ukraine off the power grid. Okay, so losing electricity. Same for water control. Transportation, so sort of modern transportation, you can do the same. Imagine what happens when we have autonomous cars. So cyber attacks on autonomous cars. Current cars are very easy to hack into. They are not very secure. So you can do a whole variety of things to a modern car that includes, slamming on the brakes, disabling the brakes, and a whole variety of different other things. That's not very difficult to do. That becomes far worse when actually the car is driving itself. The possibilities become much stronger. Same with trains, modern train signaling systems. In the health domain, so say there's lots of issues about privacy around patient data. I've spoken about what you can do to medical devices. So in all of these systems, you've got many distinct components and organizations together in some form of supply chain and network. And when you have many distinct organizations together, then actually you have a whole load of vulnerabilities. And so for a cybersecurity attacker, the Internet of Things is a fantastic opportunity because much more is connected. There's many more things that you can attack. And also, it gives you the ability to go from one system to another. So there was an example of Target last year in the US, where actually the attack started from an air conditioning unit. So something not particularly important, but it hopped from there onto another system, into the core of their infrastructure, into the core of their networks, and was then able to cause havoc with what they're doing. So the Internet of Things is fantastic, but also fantastic for people who have nefarious purposes. So attacks on our critical national infrastructure are driven by a whole load of different motivations. These include ideology, curiosity, revenge. So people do these things for a variety of reasons. 2007, there was an attack on Estonia that targeted banks, government networks, police, and broadcasters. And actually that largely brought the country to its knees. It was very difficult to do anything in Estonia while this was happening because you couldn't get money out the banks and none of the comms was work. The only way they could sort of get everything back under control was essentially to disconnect it all, and then actually you're not left with very much functionality. 2012, there was an attack on Aramco, Saudi Arabia's national oil and gas company. That destroyed 30,000 of their machines. That put a huge dent in the way that they did business. 2017, so earlier this month, there was a website of the Polish financial regulator was found to have been compromised because they put some malware on it that everyone had downloaded onto PCs in a whole load of banks, and actually over 20 commercial banks in Poland have been affected by that. So this is real, this is constant, this is happening on a regular basis. Now, some cyber attacks can be stopped by simple measures. There is an awful lot of poor IT practice done in a whole load of organizations who should know better. So there are simple things around patching, adequate passwords, making sure they're changed, and so on. However, there are some things that are more difficult to guard against. So attack code, so the code that is attacking a given network can be modified during the course of the attack. So it might sort of start in one form and then morph into something else during that attack. So the sort of code self-mutating during the course of it. People can reuse code. Cyber is a fantastic example of reuse of code. So people use one attack and then sort of build upon that from year to year and in process. So the code can be really difficult to attack. There may be an insider, so there may be someone inside your organization who is facilitating this in some way. Spear phishing. So spear phishing is where you get sent an email, ideally from someone you might be expecting it to, and then you open an attachment, typically a PDF, and actually then that can lead to an implant on your machine. Spear phishing, done well, is amazingly impressive. So the techniques and the social engineering that goes into creating meaningful stories that people open, and some of the attacks that enables these days, is really impressive at a disheartening level, I guess you would say. So, it's very impressive science, so really understanding why people behave, how people behave, and sort of working and making sure that those attachments are opened, and then you're on the system, and then you can go from wherever. Now, so to overcome all of these problems, we need help from many different fields. And today I'm going to focus on just two of them. So I've spoken about the problem. I want to talk about some of what we can do about it. Interestingly enough, it is artificial intelligence, AI, and high-performance computing, which is quite similar to the previous talk. So AI and machine learning permits the recognition of patterns. And therefore, what it's able to do is to sort of exist on your network in a good sense, monitoring what's going on and being able to determine what is normal. So what's normal for a given user, what's normal for a given network traffic of patterns from the network as a whole. So the AI system can learn those sorts of things. It can understand what should be there, what shouldn't be there, and it will then start to do anomaly detection from that. So what is normal is a great machine learning task. It can also help prevent the execution of malicious code. And I'm going to come back and talk about an example of some of our research at Imperial in a while. So AI can also help us working in concert with humans. So sort of what you have on a busy network is something that's impossible to look at just manually. I mean, the old days of sort of looking at security network logs and sort of understanding what's going on from a network are long, long gone, especially as you move out into the connected devices. What we need is the AI to be able to help us with that, to do its machine learning, and to work in concert with the people who are trying to analyze that data. So you can't just leave it to humans. It is that partnership of AI, smart AI, machine learning, and humans working together. Now, building on top of that, where HPC comes in, is adding that additional power into this, be able to mix. And so a great example of sort of AI and high performance being used together was the recent DARPA challenge at a competition at the end that they held at the end of last year. So DARPA does a whole load of challenges. That's how it does these things. It built autonomous vehicles, etc. So the last one was an automated cybersecurity system. So it was essentially a hacking competition where the defender was entirely automated. So they created a system with vulnerabilities on it, and the job the defending system, this mix of AI and high-performance computing, was to be able to detect flaws in their own system, so to understand when it was being attacked, where it was being attacked, how it was being attacked, to perform an assessment, because they put lots of attacks on it, as to whether it was worth trying to fix attacks. Not all attacks are worth fixing at a given time, and then whether they could then repair themselves or change their defenses to be able to cope with that level of complexity. All of those are complicated computing problems, so you're bringing in the AI, but they're also really built upon very high levels of high-performance computing to be able to do that. There's lots of possibilities. There's lots of possibilities of ways of attacking, lots of things to compute, lots of data to be able to process to make sense of what's good and what's normal and what should not be. So the winner of this was a system built by Carnegie Mellon University. It was exactly this combination of high-performance computing and AI. So automatic analysis techniques to identify ways in which the attacks might happen. So again, lots of possibilities, lots of paths into the system required to be analysing. Then analysing how you can do that, what the weakness of those software is, and then being able to repair it. So that's entirely automated. So machines using smart, powerful algorithms in order to be able to do that. And I think that's a really impressive and sort of very much where I think this field is going to go. Now, I became interested in this field for two main reasons. Firstly, it became part of my job. I was the UK government's chief scientific advisor for national security. I did that for 6 years. That gave me responsibility for cyber and critical national infrastructure in particular. So I saw all of these things for real in the UK and in various other countries around the world. And actually, as a computer scientist, it's something that actually you realise that if we really are to get the most of society of these digital technologies, it can't be an afterthought. You have to be serious about this. And so it really is central to what we need to do. So here at Imperial, we have got a lot of cybersecurity activities going on. We are a centre of excellence. We're involved in various government initiatives, both around the Internet of Things, industrial control systems, and exactly the sorts of environments that I've spoken about. And I'm just going to step you through some of those. So the first example of where I'm going to look up from is sort of starting from the home. So looking after your own system, be that your own individual devices, be that the network that you are looking after for yourself. These detecting attacks on these networks is really difficult. So the median number of days attackers were present on a victim's network before being discovered dropped to 146 days in 2015. 146 days to figure out that someone is on your network, and then you have to repair it. And the average cost of a breach is £1.5 million. Okay, so every time that happens. So some of it, as I said, can be done through cyber hygiene, and in particular the Petrus network, which is a connection of 9 universities and partners around government, is really looking at the people aspect of this, the people and the behavioural aspect of this. How we can protect these systems, what it means to protect these sorts of systems, and what is normal. So really looking at what security means to us all in our everyday devices. The second aspect is the networking aspect. So I recognise or I've spoken about the network being really important. And so what we have done is, what we have a lot of research going on is around blockchains and distributed ledger technology. So this is a really interesting new technology that's a way of storing and recording what's going on in a distributed ledger as a permanent record of what's going on. And it's really interesting how that can be used in order to help maintain cybersecurity and be clear that the services and the information that you're getting is the correct services and information. And so what we're exploring here is how we can use and develop technologies that enable you to preserve privacy while using an open blockchain by working on secure bits of encrypted information. So really being able to do operations in the open and the clear, but keeping all of your data secure and maintained. And that involves techniques like homomorphic encryption and various other privacy-preserving techniques. So we have research going on in that space. And then finally, what we've done, the other area of research that we have is in verifying software. So what we want to be able to do is to verify that various bits of software that are coming our way, and in particular we focused on sort of JavaScript and sort of what happens with web pages, really being able to verify, so formally prove that things that are being displayed on the web page, so a particular form from a particular site, does not have any malware contained within it. And so looking at the computing and the maths and the algorithms that are required to do that, so that you can guarantee and be sure that the software that is running in your browser or on your device doesn't have any undesirable elements within it. And so finally, what I want to convey is that cybersecurity is really important for us both as individuals and for society. It affects us all on a daily basis in almost everything we do. It's not just a technology issue. It is partly a technology issue, but human behaviors are also really central to this. And as we get better with dealing with the basics of cybersecurity hygiene, the attacks will become more sophisticated. And so we will need more sophisticated tools in order to help us defend this. This will be a sort of continuing arms race. This is the space for AI and high-performance computing to come to the fore. AI for its ability to learn, adapt, and spot unusual behavior. HPC for its ability to explore large search spaces and systematically probe for weaknesses. Thank you very much.